Just to know we've got an urgent question in the House of Commons on the collapse of that China spy case from Government Minister, Shadow Minister, Neil O'Brien. He's asking about some substance. Not a man of whom I'm a big fan because of his efforts to smear people who are making legitimate questions about lockdown. But he is a sharp guy in terms of detail. And he'd use his powers for good during lockdown, and rather than evil, we would be friends as opposed to sworn enemies. But let's talk to somebody who's a friend of the show, Mark Francois, Conservative MP and Shadow Defence Minister, who joins us now. Very good morning to you, Mark.
Thanks, Julia. It's lovely to be back on the show. Thank
you for joining us. Well, the question that Neil O'Brien has just asked is, why didn't the government give the Crown Prosecution Service what it was asking for? And this is the thing that we're all finding very confusing, because let's face it, this is a complicated story. And as I've been saying, this isn't, did the Prime Minister go to a party? Did the Prime Minister accept free gear? This isn't that simple. This is about who knew what when, who had what conversations behind the scenes or not. But it fundamentally comes down to the claim that the Crown Prosecution Service wanted a particular bit of evidence from the government to pursue a case against two alleged spies for China. And the government didn't give them that evidence, but the person in charge of that was a senior civil servant who at no point bothered mentioning it to his political appointee boss or to anyone else in government. He just made a decision off his own bat, and that's the end of that. And nothing to do with us, Gov, never discussed politically at all. And let's face it, that just doesn't sound like that's what happened, is it?
And Julia, I think you've actually summarised it far better than I was going to, so I won't attempt to repeat what you just said. Look, the government. Well, to paraphrase Mr. Spock, this is a government, but not as we know it.
Nailed it.
In some ways, it's not really a government at all, because a government implies some sense of collective purpose or endeavour. It's now effectively only a year and a bit in. It's a day-to-day crisis management organisation. And that's why here we are with a UQ in the House of Commons. Now, if we go back one day, yesterday at Prime Minister's Questions, the Speaker, who is desperately passionate about MP security, I think everyone accepts that, and that's why he's so angry about this. He effectively created a precedent when he allowed the Prime Minister to make a statement on this in his opening remarks at PM's Q.
Yep.
I mean, normally they might pay tribute to someone who's died, but he gave him about 5 minutes at the start of PMQs to try and clarify the government's position. And then Kenny came back at him very hard.
Although, by the way, the Prime Minister, normally when there's a statement made, it's supposed to be given to the opposition in advance so that they can give a substantive response.
Yeah, so what happened yesterday was, well, I've been an MP for 24 years. I've never seen anything quite like that. But I think the PM and Labour wanted to use that to try and close it down. They wanted to give quotes the definitive answer and then hope that, you know, the caravan would move on. Well, completely backfired, and it actually led to more questions than it answered. And hence the UQ that's going on as we...
The urgent question. Don't use parliamentary shorthand. No one knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's like a little mini emergency debate. It's a good way of putting it. Yeah. And the person replying for Her Majesty's government is Chris Ward, the parliamentary undersecretary. He's been an MP for a year.
Yeah, OK, yeah, not around for a lot of this. Here's the thing, we can get into sort of parliamentary niceties. My audience and voters don't give two hoots about any of that. What they want to know is, did someone in government, civil servant or politician, or someone in the Crown Prosecution Service deliberately undermine the chance of there being a trial for two men alleged of basically, you know, spying for a hostile nation state? That's what they want to know. Was it, you know, was it just incompetence? I mean, totally believable with this government, or was it abject incompetence, or were they kowtowing to the Chinese? Did someone have a quiet ear? Is it men in grey suits in smoky rooms and, you know, those gentlemen's clubs go, I say, old chap, would you mind making this thing go away? It's a bit embarrassing. We're trying to do a trade deal with China. What do you think actually happened, Mark?
I think everyone can see what happened here, Julia. It's patently obvious, you know, to the man or woman in the street. The government are in terrible economic trouble. They're desperate for growth. They're desperate for contracts and deals with anyone they can get. but particularly with China because of the potential size of the market. So of course, they didn't want this trial to go ahead. Now, everyone can see what is happening here. And I don't think this issue's going away.
Are you saying the government wanted, the political wing of the government, not the civil servants, not the Crown Prosecution Service, separate from political job, that they deliberately collapsed this trial?
Well, let's see what is said in the Commons. I mean, it's literally, I don't want to cut across what Nino Bryan is saying.
I don't think there's much useful going to come out of this statement in the Commons, because this is the thing, because senior MPs, committee chairs and the like, met with the Director of Public Prosecutions, Stephen Parkinson, last night, and they came away, frankly, rather unimpressed with him, saying, well, why didn't he go elsewhere to get the evidence? We're going to be talking a little bit later in about an hour's time to the former boss of MI6. He might have been able to provide evidence of this threat. Why did he choose, for instance, not to go ahead when he said that he had 95% of the evidence, but he needed another 5%? You and I both know, we've seen trials, we've watched, I cover them as a news reporter in the actual courtroom, that have had less evidence that can be presented than we know about so far on this case, and yet those cases have gone ahead.
Well, let me put it like this. It would be politically advantageous to the government, albeit not the right thing to do, for that trial not to have gone ahead.
Yeah.
And here's a government that still can't take a decision on whether or not to have this so-called Chinese super embassy at Tower Hill, that literally would sit on top of some extremely sensitive financial cables that, they would be sitting on top of the lifeblood of the city underneath the embassy.
And the lifeblood of our economy.
Yeah. Now, look, the public aren't stupid, Julia. Everyone can see what is going on here. And I think part of the problem of the current crisis management organisation masquerading as a government is that they've lost that most vital element in politics, the benefit of the doubt.
And that's
after the Mandelson affair and all the rest of it, the man or woman in the pub looks up at this and goes, that lot, you've got to be kidding. So they're now desperately trying to persuade an incredibly cynical public that we ain't done nothing wrong and, move along.
But that's the thing. I mean, this is a complicated story, as I said at the start, and they're kind of hoping that most people, frankly, we've got lives, jobs, kids to get to school, supermarket shops to do. We don't really have time to get into the nitty-gritty of this. I've been reading up on it and following this case, and I struggle with some of it, and I think a lot of MPs do as well. But ultimately, we don't need to know who said what in which document when. It comes down to something very, very simple. Was there a deliberate political attempt to collapse a criminal trial, and either with a nudge, wink, wink to the CPS, or deliberately, directing a civil servant to do something different? The throwing of a civil servant under the car, the car tyres, like, oh no, this guy, this Deputy National Security Advisor, Matthew Collins, is the one who made the decision. It's not believable. But people can smell a rat. That's the truth. People can smell a rat.
Yeah. If it looks like a duck and waddles like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Look, here's what the Deputy National Security Advisor put in his witness statement that was released overnight.
Yeah.
Right? The UK government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China and will cooperate where we can, compete where we need to, and challenge where we must. Here's the quote on China from the Labour Party manifesto. Yeah. We will cooperate where we can, compete where we need to, and challenge where we must.
Yeah.
Join the dots.
Yeah, that is a political statement, not one that would have been made by a civil servant who's apolitical, and therefore there must have been some political input. And when the Prime Minister says there's been no political input, well, that's clearly untrue.
Well, look, Julia, you summarised, if I may, a very complex who said what when situation in your opening remarks. And so really this comes down to, who do the public believe?
Yeah.
Do they believe that it just so happens that this trial collapsed, and it just so happens that that was really convenient for the government in terms of desperately trying to get trade deals with China? Or do they believe that someone somewhere had a word? Yeah. And I think most of the public believe it's B and not A.
Well,
and let's remember who are we dealing with here, right? This is a Chinese regime that is authoritarian, that locks up 1 million Uyghur Muslims effectively in concentration camps, they call them education centres, for having the temerity to believe in God.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is what we're dealing with. Yeah. So I think, to come back to what you just said, I think this is going to run, and I just don't think the public. And by the way, Keir Starmer's net approval rating, the other day was -69. Yeah. Which is lower even than Liz Truss after the mini budget.
It's quite a feat. That's quite a feat. Yeah.
So are the public going to believe a man with a net approval rating of -69? No, I don't think they are.
No, quite right. And indeed, the question is whether we believe Dominic Cummings, but when he says that Chinese stole state secrets from Number 10 by buying up a company that basically controlled a data hub used by the government department to exchange classified information for years. And apparently, according to my guest, former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram, they absolutely did. Mark Francois, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to watching what's going on in the Commons. He's a Conservative MP and Shadow Defence Minister. Philip Ingram, again, as we say, it's a complicated story, but it does come down to just kind of the basics. Neil O'Brien, this government is a Shadow Minister, so he's been asking the Cabinet Office Minister, Chris Ward, why didn't the government give the CPS what it was asking for? We need to know what was asked for by the CPS, why it was refused, and we must see all the correspondence and minutes of meetings. If not, people will ask, what has this government got to hide? All fair questions.
Very fair questions. If there was a simple answer to this, then the government would have given the simple answer because it would make it go away. The fact that they're tying themselves in knots and things are dribbling out shows that they've got something they're trying to hide. Full stop.
Absolutely. Well, something that's definitely they're trying to hide in terms of the budget coming up is who's going to get their taxes going up. I mean, it's going to be pretty much everybody, I hate to tell you, but wealth taxes absolutely are part of the story. Who said that? Well, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor.